Chapter 6, The Lion's Lesson. Miss Pointy is pointy. Her nose is pointy, her ears are pointy, her shoes are pointy, and boy are her fingers ever pointy. Sometimes even her voice is pointy, especially when she says you. The you she's usually talking to is Daryl Sykes. Daryl Sykes always has fire in his eyes. Anything Miss Pointy tells him, he looks at her like she just told him she ran over his dog. He makes these grunting sounds and talks under his breath until Miss Pointy can't ignore it anymore. She takes him out in the hall. She thinks we can't hear, but we're real quiet then, so we can. She says things like, "I can't make you do anything. It's your choice. Please help me," when she's not too frustrated. But when she's mad, she says things like, "Keep talking to yourself all day in that crazy way. You're going to end up in a crazy man sitting at the back of the public bus with dead pigeons in a hefty bag. How's that sound?" I hear Daryl say nothing, and I feel mixed up. I know that angry feeling of grown-ups trying to push their way into the room of your mind, and I know that feeling of trying to hold the door shut against them with quiet and looking down. But I knew why I was angry, at my teachers, at my counselor. I don't know why Daryl is angry. At everybody. Miss Pointy tries to get us to leave our problems at home. She stands at the doorway every morning, smiling like she's auditioning to be a movie star. But she blocks the door and nobody gets in until they use the trouble basket. We pretend to put our troubles into the big green basket she holds out before we enter. Our troubles are invisible to the eye, but they are heavy. She practically breaks her back holding all these troubles for us. But she says we can't carry them into the classroom ourselves, or we won't be able to work. She offers the troubles back to us at the end of the day, since they don't belong to her. Nobody's ever taken them back. Still, they seem to follow us and find us at home, like black cats. In class, Miss Pointy ignores Daryl's special needs. She calls on him the same way as everyone else. She waits a long time for him to answer. Then we all have to wait. "Daryl, I'm waiting on you." Silence. "I don't know" is an acceptable answer. "How about I don't care," he sneered. As a class, we made a low moan. "Less acceptable," said Miss Pointy, and continued to wait. And wait. Finally, she moved on. "Stupid Miss Potty," Daryl grumbled. "Yes, Daryl, you have something to say, now that your turn is over?" Miss Pointy grumbled back. "You called me a barrel," yelled Daryl. Some boys snorted through their noses because Daryl is kind of round and solid, barrel-shaped. He crossed his arms and pouted. "I certainly didn't call you a barrel, Daryl." "Why would I call you a barrel?" she sighed. "Please stop talking crazy like that." "You always calling me crazy," he roared. "You're always acting crazy," she roared back. Then Daryl got up, kicked Miss Pointy's desk, and sat back down, his chest heaving. I would have been afraid Miss Pointy looked unhappy, but not afraid. She got up and stood next to Daryl's desk. "Excuse me," she said. She kicked his desk firmly with her toe. He jumped. "Huh? Did kicking a desk work for you? It's not working for me." "You're not kicking it hard enough," said Daryl sweetly. She nodded. "I see. Would you mind getting up again?" Daryl stood. She shooed him a few paces away, and then she picked up the hem of her long ballroom skirt just slightly before punting the desk so mightily that it tipped over with a terrible crash and slid about 3 feet. We stared. "Ouch," said Miss Pointy. She took her foot out of her high-heeled shoe and rubbed her toe. Then she hobbled back to her own desk. "It still doesn't work for me. Well, thanks anyway, Daryl, or Barrel, or Farrell, or whatever it is you want people to call you. Now let's get back to work." Daryl Barrel was too pig-headed to go and get his desk, so he had to do his work on his lap. When we came back from lunch, His desk was set right again. The point of this story is, don't try to out-crazy a crazy. You see, even Miss Pointy's stories have points. She likes to tell stories about foxes and crows a lot. Crows putting pebbles in jugs and making the cool water rise. Foxes snapping sharp jaws at grapes, just out of reach, walking away, not caring. Dogs losing bones to reflections in the stream. Ants working, grasshoppers playing. She told us a story about a fox and a stork. The fox invites the stork for dinner, but serves food in a flat saucer, so the stork can't eat. The stork invites the fox to dinner, and for revenge serves food in a narrow-necked jar, so the fox can't eat. "What's the lesson here?" she asked. "Foxes and storks don't know how to eat dinner together," said Leon. "Fox should have just ate stork," Angelina observed. "Maybe he was still full," suggested Michael. "When people aren't nice, everyone ends up hungry and suffering," Ernie said. That's a good one." Miss Pointy rubbed her chin. "No, it ain't," argued Leon. "There's no people, just foxes and storks." "When you go to someone else's house, sometimes they don't serve what you like," offered Maria. "Yeah, I slept over at Veronica's and her mama served government cheese," said Sakia. Veronica turned around and sent Sakia a stabbing look. "Well, she did." "Girl, your mouth is as big as a saucer," Raphael laughed. "Come on, Miss Pointy, tell us what's the lesson." "Tit for tat," said Miss Pointy. This sent Raphael and some of the boys into such uncontrollable giggles, she sent them out of the room, one at a time, to the water fountain. "That story nasty, Miss Pointy," said Dominique upon his return. "I didn't make up these stories, you know. Aesop did." "Why he always writing about animals?" demanded Chiari. "Didn't he know no people?" "He was writing about people. He gave the animals the qualities he saw in people. Bitterness, perseverance, foolishness, trickery, pride. But Aesop had certain qualities too. That made it so he had to tell stories for survival. He was a slave to King Xanthus in ancient Greece. He was a slave. He was a mute. He couldn't talk. He was ugly. They say he had a humped back, bowed legs, a pot belly, and he was short as a dwarf." "Dang, that is ugly," Tinyeha agreed. "The Greek gods looked upon him and didn't see what was on the outside. They saw he was decent on the inside. So they gave him gifts of speech and storytelling. Do you think these were good gifts?" "I'd rather be handsome," Larry admitted. "Would you have known Aesop was ugly if I hadn't told you?" "No," we shook our heads. "He writes handsome stories," said Rashonda. "I think so too. He used his stories to advise the king. Sometimes he disagreed with the king's way of thinking, but he couldn't say so outright, or guess what?" "They'd kill him!" we cheered. "Off with his head!" Sakia shouted. "You gotta watch the man," warned Dominique. Miss Pointy did not argue. Instead of disagreeing with the king, he used his stories to offer the bit of common sense the king might have been missing. Maybe he used animals so the story wouldn't seem too personal. "He tricked him," Ernie said. "Persuaded," Miss Pointy winked. Then she told us a fable she said was one of her favorites, about a lion trapped in a net who was chewed out to freedom by a little mouse. She asked what the story showed. "Be careful of traps, whether you're a mouse or a lion," said Ernie. "That's a good piece of advice for a king," Miss Pointy said, nodding. "Or if you're a mouse or a lion," added Ernie empathetically. "You gotta watch the man," suggested Dominique. "Perhaps," Miss Pointy said, "but please try to think of a new lesson, Dominique." That was not the moral of all of Aesop's fables. Dominic slumped in his own seat, blushing. I'm just saying, he muttered. Y'all better watch him. That's your daddy's moral, not Aesop's, laughed Tanieha. You be quiet about my daddy, Dominique said. Now, stay on business. What's the lesson of the story? Pay back favors, said Amir. Good, said Miss Pointy, smiling. Anyone else? It doesn't matter if someone is different. They can be your friend and help you when you need it most, said Paris. She was smart. Miss Pointy took out her happy box, a little box full of stickers she takes out sometimes if you impress her. We moaned. Jealous. Paris is right. No one is so weak that on occasion he can't be a help to you. That's what Aesop meant, so that Xanthus shouldn't overlook the smaller countries in efforts to make alliances, explained Miss Pointy. What's alliances? Friendships. If there's a conflict, a war, you need all the friends you can get. If you're in a war, we'll be your allies, Ernie spoke for all of us. Almost all of us. Darryl had been quiet, burning his look into Miss Pointy's forehead all along, silently crushing his teeth against each other inside his mouth. I could see his jaw moving. I'll be counting on it, said Miss Pointy. Let's write in our journals now. I imagined what Darryl would write. Later, I was able to see, because it was my turn to check in homework on the chart. I stayed after with Rachel and peeked when Miss Pointy took the rest of the class out. I don't think you should look in people's journals, said Rachel. Just one person's, I promise, I said. Whose? Darryl's. She laughed. You're crazy. He probably can't even write. Come on, want to see? She leaned over, but then pulled back. No, she said. Curiosity killed the cat. What a way to die, I thought. Did Aesop say that? No, your mama did. Get in trouble by yourself, cuz I'd like to get out of the 5th grade. She went back to cleaning the board in wide, wet lines with a sponge. I read. She a bitch, a big one. Why she go saying that I ain't never said nothing to her? I'ma tell my mama, then we'll see. Well, I wasn't too far off. What'd it say? She asked. I thought curiosity killed the cat. You were right, I said. It's nothing.